Hey, fellow nurses and healthcare providers. I'm Rita Batchley, and this is your station for Coffee with the Nurse's Nurse, where we infuse the self-care into the nursing profession one sip at a time. And today's topic, we're going to talk about Florence Nightingale. Was she a racist? Wow. Happy Nurses Week, by the way. Oh my gosh, I can't believe another year has flown by and it's Nurses Week, which, by the way, Nurses Week was originally celebrated because of Florence Nightingale's birthday, which is May 12th. And we celebrate it this year from May 6th through May 13th. And this would have been her 202nd birthday. And it is this year's very first National Nurses March, which will be in Washington, D.C. this Thursday on Florence Nightingale's birthday. And the original intent of the National Nurses March was to march for safe staffing ratios and to protest workplace violence, which is increasing against nurses across the country. Well, what I found was there's a certain nurse influencer named, Marita, and she challenged the National Nurses March by saying that she refused to support this march because it's celebrated on Florence Nightingale's birthday. So that Million Nurse March that they were calling it was an insult to Marita in the Nurses Lounge, and she said she would not support it. And it didn't seem to matter, though, because Veronica Marshall, who initiated this National Nurses March, she got 175,000 followers in the very first week that she announced this National Nurses March against nurse violence or safe staffing ratios and the terrible conditions at hospitals, capping the pay on nurses. There's just been all kinds of stuff to march about. And it's going to be a terrific day. And I really am regretting very much that I can't go to it. But here is the flyer for it. And it's going to start at 8 a.m. And they're going to march and have all kinds of rallies. And people are going to get to meet Veronica Marshall, which I really feel is like so super cool, because she did do this because it was Florence's birthday. And when I saw that, Nurse Marita said that, Florence Nightingale is a racist. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I mean, that was just like a big blow to me. Like, she's like one of my heroes. She's a hero of a lot of nurses. And I just started looking up a lot of stuff. I mean, who doesn't know about Florence Nightingale, the lady with the lamp? I mean, at least that was what was driven into us in nursing school, that she is the mother of modern day nursing. And the lady with the lamp provided care and comfort for British soldiers during the Crimean War. She was born in 1820, and she did help revolutionize medicine, especially nursing, making it a science. And how did she do that? Well, with math. She was a statistician. She invented the pie chart. So I was like, what? The pie chart? Apparently, the pie chart was a way that she showed how the soldiers died. And I'm going to pull that up in a second here as soon as I get my mouse to work. Here, I'm just going to touch my screen. She came up with this pie chart, which is the blue you could see was these soldiers were dying of their care, basically the lack of care and the conditions of the hospitals. The red was the soldiers got hurt in battle, and then the gray were other causes for them to die. So the Nightingale was able to show Queen Victoria that this was like atrocious. So Queen Victoria sent out 36 nurses to work for Nightingale, and she developed a whole system of developing, collecting data. And she showed that by improving the conditions, by giving the soldiers nutrition and all this good stuff, and basically all this boiled down to was that the conditions that nurses could change the way that patients healed. And it became the premise of all nursing and science and nursing. And yeah, I could definitely get behind that. So when I looked up all this other information about Flo and being a racist, it was like, oh no, you didn't just say that Flo was a racist. Well, yeah, apparently she was, because of the times that she was brought up with. And I want to preface this by saying that I too had a lot of racial bias that I didn't even know I had until I had to take a course to renew my license for the Oregon State licensing. I renewed my license last year and I had to take a course, and it was really good because it showed me just how the conditioning that I was brought up with led me to believe certain things about Black people, Hispanic people that I really didn't get because I grew up with white privilege. And yeah, I grew up in an Irish Catholic house, and I went to Catholic school, and I wasn't, you know, there were Black kids in my school and I had Black friends. But I just remember the first time I went to a park and I saw Black people, a Black family with a dog. And I was like, wow, I didn't know Black people could have pets. Like, that was so weird, like why that came about. But I know that that the racism out there, it does exist. And what I found in this documentation when I researched for this show is that a lot of our racism comes from the fact that we are a colony of Great Britain, which supported colonization and imperialism, which is taking over. It's where one country physically exerts complete control over another country. And imperialism is formal or informal economic and political domination. And that was something that, there it is. Imperialism was very much what was going on in the Crimean War and all these other wars and things that were happening in and around Great Britain. They colonized India, New Zealand, Australia, all these subjects of the crown. And so Florence Nightingale, who was she came from a very wealthy family and she supported the government, was all behind the idea of imperialism and colonization. And from 1861, so she was around between 1820 and 1910. So in 1861 was in the height of her career after she, came home from the Crimea War. And she was an advisor to the governor of New Zealand. And her role in advising that governor, it was during a very brutal time in which it was against the Maori, which was a tribe, and this anti-colonial uprising, and her support of the government really showed New Zealand that they were not even going to use Florence Nightingale as a representative of nursing in 2020. That was the 200th birthday of and the International Year of the Nurse. New Zealand refused to use Florence Nightingale as the poster child for nursing because they felt that it was too traumatic. And raising her, this is a quote, raising her as the beacon for nursing globally causes trauma and reignites the history and pain of colonization. And they explain that the Eurocentric campaign for the Year of the Nurse is harmful and disrespectful to Indigenous nurses and call her legacy dangerous. And that leads me to today, where we have, these countries where human rights are being destroyed and colonization is coming in, a society saying that we do it better, we are taking over. And where are we seeing that in this very world today? If you guessed Ukraine, then you guessed correctly. And that is exactly what is going on in the Ukraine today, is this idea of colonialism and imperialism, and Russia being determined to take back the Ukraine and usurp the Ukrainians and make the Ukrainians become the dominant Russian empire. And that is just, pretty villainous. And so I could definitely understand why people would say that Flo is a racist, or she was going with the times. Her time was the Victorian epitome. She was, during the reign of Queen Victoria, there was so much racism going on, and the fact that, great Indian revolt sent shockwaves throughout the empire. Nightingale was an active participant in this. And just to say that she was a product of her times, we can argue that, but it's just not, it just doesn't fly. It doesn't keep in peace in the advocacy of people and what they're all about. So when I read that, and I thought, well, that kind of stinks, because I really want Flo to be my hero, and she is my hero. But what I can't stand behind is this prejudice of, like, my way is better. So what I want to do is look at this in a way so people can see that Nightingale was human, and humans make mistakes, and to look at what we do in nursing, just like every science experiment, we do things and we figure out the right way to do them, or we can, keep doing them and being ignorant. And how, once and we open Pandora's box that wrong is wrong and racism is racism, to stop it and to say there's a better way is the learning process, of which Florence Nightingale always said, we're never done learning. So I don't think erasing Florence Nightingale from the whole conversation is the way to go. It's about learning and bettering ourselves from our mistakes, because I don't know anyone who doesn't make mistakes. And I think there's a quote that says something like, one who seldom makes mistakes rarely makes anything at all. And I would have to agree with that. So I'm proposing that we actually get to know her better, and which I did. I researched that and I brought it here to you, and what her legacy actually means for nursing. And in the context of what happened in New Zealand and their ban on Flo because it was too traumatizing, well, what nurses and Black nurses can we celebrate and say that, yeah, I'm really excited to bring new faces into the history of nursing, like Tubman, uh, and let's see, yes, Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman are two examples of bringing awareness and of different nurses and Black nurses into history. And yeah, my own discovery of like how hard it was for Black nurses to become nurses or Blacks to become nurses. And it were Blacks were not allowed in the schools. And we need Black nurses to provide Black communities with better health care, because it's showing as a new public health atrocity how different communities need their underserved areas need percentages of nurses that they can identify. And however, we want to improve these situations for all of us. So getting out there and shifting, and the shift of what to do better. So I feel like with Nightingale, if she had not been arrogant about the way she said that it was our way or the highway, that things could have been a lot better for everybody. But that's what colonization is, and imperialism is. And she was supporting that, but being confident, not arrogant, brings people together. It builds confidence rather than building walls around people. And the bullseye is inclusiveness. So we have a new target. How can we hit the bullseye if we don't even know what the target is, to reduce racism and reduce the way people are disenfranchised out of healthcare, and bringing love into all of our conversations, that everyone is deserving of love and care. And that's where the true power comes from, and our desire to help others. So in my call to action is also, when feelings waste themselves in words, they ought all to be distilled into action, which brings results. And that action comes right back to the National Nurses March, which is on Thursday. And it's telling us to stop being bullies and thinking that our way is the best way, when in fact, bringing everybody's deserving of respect and how they do things. We don't need to bully one another to be popular. And that is one of the big issues in nursing, is this idea that we have to take the higher road, even when it's not easy. We're not going to be popular to say, no, stop, that's not the right way to do this. Or a person that's being bullied so that other people can elevate themselves and look better and think that their actions are better because they're stronger and they outnumber everybody. That's not improving healthy outcomes for everybody. And I want to just say, yeah, thank you, Flo, for giving us pie charts and statistics and a way to scientifically prove that certain ways are better at doing things. But those ways have to be inclusive and socially sensitive. And some of the ways that we can support that is through writing to Congress to pass the safe staffing bills, because everyone, everywhere deserves a nurse. And share this with your friends if you got anything out of this, just hit the like button, share it, and subscribe to Facebook and YouTube. And I am going to go to see if there are any comments and say, wow. And appreciate, yeah, I got a few comments here, agreements, and that's so cool. And it's so good to be part of YouTube and Facebook to get the word out that nurses can change the world. And we can do it with our coffee. One sip at a time, putting the self-care back into healthcare, because you can't give away something you don't got. So my hope is you get yourself to Washington, D.C., and you spread the word that safe staffing ratios are coming.